But Tone has worked on Wall Street for about 10 years, originally from New York City. He was, you were at Bear Stearns during 2008 as a risk analyst, then became a VP.
That didn't work out well. For neither me nor Bear Stearns. The panel they put me on was called Bitcoin versus altcoins. Now we're talking May 2015.
How many altcoins were there even?
Oh, there were like about 100 or about 200 altcoins back then. It was 2014. So like May 2014, there was probably about a few hundred altcoins then. But guess which side I was on? On the side of altcoins or on the side of a Bitcoin maximalist?
Well, because you posed it that way, I'm going to guess altcoin.
Yeah.
I will welcome everybody to a crypto wealth edition of the Liberty Advisor podcast. Today we are joined by the one and only Tone Vays. And actually we're on location at Ernest Hancock's house of freedomsphoenix.com. My voice is a little rough right now, so I can't get the high notes for freedomsphoenix.com. Also pirateswithoutborders.com, and this is also the scene of the crime where both Tone Vays and myself first radio show appearance was on Ernie's show. So he is responsible for, I guess, both of us. How did that really come about? How did you and Ernie end up getting hooked up?
Oh, wow. So this is actually interesting. So Ernie was the first person to ever interview me. So my whole career started off of Ernie's show. So Ernie and I met at the very first Bitcoin conference I ever attended. It was in April 2014 in New York City, which is where I lived at the time. I don't really live there anymore, but because of all my travels.
Out of a suitcase now.
Yeah,
right?
I live out of a suitcase now. But yeah, so I was working on Wall Street at the time, and I attended my very first Bitcoin conference. I already had some Bitcoin. I got into it about a year earlier. But I didn't know anyone. So I had just started to meet people in the community earlier in 2014. And that was my very first conference. And Ernie was there. And I asked some very challenging questions to some of the speakers. And Ernie took notice. He thought I was important. I wasn't. And then I get an email from Ernie because he took my contact information asking me to come on his show. And I did. And I then used that show as like, hey, I've been interviewed before in order to get my very first speaking gig at a conference in Hong Kong. About a month later, my Wall Street company had an office in Hong Kong. They were happy to have me pay my own way, go out there, meet the team. But I was going out there because I got a speaking gig to speak on a panel. And you're going to find this funny because you're familiar with my work. The panel they put me on was called Bitcoin versus altcoins. Now we're talking May 2015.
How many altcoins were there even in 2015?
Oh, there were like about 100 or about 200 altcoins back then. This is 2014. So like May 2014, there was probably about a few hundred altcoins then. But guess which side I was on? On the side of altcoins or on the side of a Bitcoin maximalist?
Well, because you posed it that way, I'm going to guess altcoin.
Yeah. So I was pretty open-minded to the altcoins at the time. And I was on that panel, and my career took off from there. Cointelegraph had just launched the publication. They were in the audience. They liked what I had to say. They asked me to write for them. So I think in June of that year of 2015, I started writing for Cointelegraph. And that led to a little more exposure. Now I had one speaking gig, one interview, a couple of articles. That led to more interviews, more speaking gigs until I became a known YouTube personality that kept getting interviewed on people's channels. There was enough demand asking me to start my own YouTube channel, so I did that, and it kind of took off from there.
Well, that's really interesting, and I didn't give Tone really a proper introduction. So and of course my iPad goes to sleep as I'm doing this. But Tone has worked on Wall Street for about 10 years, originally from New York City. He was, you were at Bear Stearns during 2008 as a risk analyst, then became a VP.
That didn't work out well. For neither me nor Bear Stearns.
And then went on to JP Morgan after the financial crisis. He's been in documentaries such as Magic Money and Bitcoin Beyond the Bubble. And now Tone, as he's mentioned before, has got his own YouTube channel. You can check him out at tonevays.com. He also has a big conference coming up here in Vegas. And I think you got a workshop in Phoenix coming up soon.
No, I already did that.
Okay.
So I did my workshop in Phoenix this past Sunday. And
so now you can drink.
Yeah, so now I can drink. And now we have the conference coming up next weekend. So I'm off to Vegas on Monday. It's going to be interesting. So So I wanted to pick because I wanted to do it in January. I mean, you can't last too long, and because okay, let's do it in January. It's nice. It's cold everywhere else. Vegas should be warm. I underestimated how hot it's going to be. I'm sitting here in Phoenix in a freaking sweatshirt. Underestimated how hot it's going to be in Phoenix. That's one
It was
mistake.
pretty hot up until about an hour ago.
Yeah. And the other thing is, I'm like, all right, well, January is the football playoffs. I mean, we got the divisional games. Who's going to go to the Super Bowl is going to be decided basically this weekend. And so this is the Pro Bowl weekend. I'm okay. There can't be much going on in Vegas. I didn't want to do it Super Bowl weekend. That's crazy. I didn't want to do it the weekend before because of football. So let's do it the Pro Bowl weekend. There's no football. There's no real sports. You know, basketball's in the middle of nowhere. Nothing is going on. Do you know what I'm conflicting with in Vegas? The porn convention awards.
I guess it's not a bad thing to be running into certain people,
No,
certain
but
after parties.
no, but they're running out of rooms. Well, like the prices went through the roof now. People that didn't book their hotels in time for my conference are getting in trouble right now.
Getting schlonged.
Yeah,
You know, that's
exactly.
No, that's yeah. I guess CES was that like last weekend. That was
Yes,
that's
the
like
CES
a really,
was
that's a
before,
really
right?
big
So I
one.
didn't want to conflict with CES. I had no idea. Like, man, everyone really should really know when the Adult Entertainment Awards are happening in Vegas. But we'll
Yeah.
see how it goes. If it goes really well, I might always time it with that event.
It's just a coincidence. Well, you're not married, so I don't think. Are you married or kids?
No,
or?
I am not married. Unfortunately, when you organize your own conference, you're going to be too busy to participate in those activities.
No, I can only imagine. I did see you're on Max Kaiser too, and he actually named the program. On
I know, it's
Conference
great.
Cable,
No,
which
Max is awesome. So Max, so the way Ernie and I go back, like Ernie was very instrumental in my career. I mean, the last 3 years, me and Ernie have just been arguing over altcoins. But
that why
we're
you're
still
drinking
friends.
now?
Yeah, that's why I drink heavily when I'm here. But Max was even more instrumental because I didn't have any friends. Like most people find out about Bitcoin because of some crazy libertarian friend is like chewing their ear off. Is that how you found out?
Yeah, and I'm also the crazy libertarian friend telling
Right.
other people. So
And for me, I found out about Bitcoin through Max Kaiser, through the show Max Kaiser. Not that I mean, he didn't know who I was. So it's like really awesome that like the person from who I heard the word Bitcoin for the first time by watching RT, I've now been on that show about 3 or 4 times. So it's awesome, you know, like you learn about Bitcoin through Max's show, and then 3 years go by, 4 years go by, and you're on his show.
yeah, and it's somewhat similar with me, where I heard about it from my wife's best friend who was dating a hardcore anarcho-capitalist at the time. But I was thinking, these are people that have already given up their, social security numbers, and hey, am I really going to take that seriously? And they found out about it through, Freedom's Phoenix, and were listeners of Ernie. And this is before I even knew who Ernie was. This is back when I was living in New York still. So when I had no connection to Phoenix. So it's sort of interesting how the whole, turn of events ends up, the circle of life, how it brings us back together. And then I guess we also do have some other similarities too. We're both from New York. I guess we're both pretty opinionated, which probably goes with the saying of, I guess, goes with the territory of being from New York. I guess I can't grow facial hair, but I've got hair up top, so it's sort of like the polar opposite.
Yeah,
in that
I've
respect.
switched recently.
But then also from the investing world of things, I'm more of the long-term fundamental analysis guy, and I don't do any day trading. And then you're the complete opposite of. I was watching, I think, a few minutes of your video yesterday, and I was trying to figure out what you were trading, if it was on like a minute-by-minute chart or a 10-minute chart or a day chart.
10-minute chart.
Because for me, I'm looking at the much bigger Titanic moves, and so I can't even really relate to any of that stuff that's going on. So do you still pay attention to the traditional markets as well?
I do, whenever I can. Definitely not like I used to. I mean, that was more like a fun video. I mean, I can't day trade anymore. Those days are long behind me. I wasn't even a fan of it when I did it. I do prefer more of the swing trader style, where you take on your positions for a week to a couple of weeks, maybe a month or two at a time. But I still pay attention to the traditional markets. I've been focusing a lot on the S&P 500 over the last week, because I think the S&P is at a very critical point right now, and it's starting to look like we are out of this drop. I was very surprised by the big correction early at the end of last year going into this year, I mean, I had been saying for years now. I remember, I mean, you go to the Anarchapulco event, and
I lost my job for going there. So
yeah.
I think it cost me $20,000 a minute to speak there.
Jesus. And so you went there for the first time this past year, right? 2017 was your first?
2018, yeah, so 2019.
Oh, 2018 was your first one, right? So 2018 was the first one I didn't go to. So I was there for the first 3 Anarchapulcos. I mean, I don't go there anymore. No real reason to discuss that. But in 2016, so in February of 2016 in Anarchapulco, I gave a presentation called Investing in a Fed-Controlled World. And I was the second person to speak on opening day, following the headliner. Now, the headliner was G. Edward Griffin. You know who that is?
Do I know? My profile picture is a picture of me. I have G. Edward Griffin on my left and Mike Maloney on my right. So before I went to give my presentation last year, which I had to basically quit my job, almost get divorced, lose over $100,000 of residual income, temporarily had to lose that. I go backstage to go speak. I'm already nervous enough. And backstage is Mike Maloney and G. Edward Griffin, because G. Edward he was 2 people in front of me. So similar story.
Nice. Right. Okay, so I'm sorry. So here, let me correct the story slightly. So I gave this presentation actually in 2017, and I was following G. Edward Griffin, who was their headliner, speaking there for the first time in 2017. He came back for the 2018. So this was my 2017 speech. So in 2017, February, I go on stage following him, and he just gave his presentation about, you know, the Fed and how corrupt it is and how it ruined everything, you know. So I go up there following him, and the first thing I say is, so I don't have the kind of, you know, stature as the prior speaker about the Fed. What I can tell you is that I stood on this stage exactly 1 year ago in 2016. And to the laughter of the audience of Anarchapulco, I said, sell your gold and buy the S&P 500. And all of you laughed because all of you expected a crash. Let's see how we did. Gold was up, I believe, about $2 from the same day a year earlier, and the S&P was up 26% in that year. And I followed that with a presentation saying the stock market and the Fed control war, and I went through the history of the stock market since the day the Federal Reserve was created, and how that was the investment of a lifetime of putting your money in the stock market at any point on any day and not putting your money into precious metals. And in that presentation, I said that I don't expect the stock market to top until the Dow Jones reaches at least $75,000. Right now, the Dow Jones is at about 26,000 or something. At the time,
24 maybe.
Yeah, something like that, like around 25,000. At the time of that presentation back in 2017, the 18. Dow Jones was like, yeah, maybe like 18 or 20. And they all laughed at me back then in 2017. So I was very surprised when I saw the correction early this year, and it felt like, man, we can really correct 40-50%. And I really don't see that coming until at least 5 or 6 years from now, after a big exponential rise. I just think the stock market is way behind. I think that there was we lost 15 years between the dot-com bubble in 2000 and 2015, when the NASDAQ made a new all-time high above 5,000 in 2015 or 2016. We're not even talking about inflation adjusted. We're talking about nominal. It was a 15-year dead market because the S&P also was flat between 2000 and 2015. Because we had the peak in 2000, and then in 2007 we started to break above it, and then we had the housing bubble. So that's 15 years of zero returns. And the market makes about 7 to 8% return on average per year. So we were so behind. We're still about a decade behind of 20% return per year on average to catch up to the historical 100-year average. And then we're going to have the big crash.
Now going into, last year I spoke at TDV. I had a few people give me their emails, like maybe about, I think it was like 26 people gave me their email on stage. I only emailed them a few times because I don't want to, spam people, and I had a bunch of stuff to do. One of those emails I have right here underneath me, where we gotta get the wine out of the way, and I just got a new cell phone screen, so I don't want to crack that one again. Which I broke from getting attacked by liberals a couple years ago. That's a whole nother story. I'd love to hear that one. That's actually on YouTube. The whole thing's on video. I cleared out a feminist march by myself. But anyways, the email that I had was, I made this on October 2nd. It was released October 4th of this year. And it says, we've been told that things have never been better with the economy. And actually, by coincidence, I was at Ernie's show that day, so you can actually, so to make sure I wasn't just bullshitting and like creating
So it looks like October 2nd, 2018?
Yes. So
or February?
October. October.
I travel internationally too much. Jesus Christ, can we please get the date convention? Like I don't ask for much, right? But like, can we at least have like a global standard for month and day?
Can nobody look at any other cryptocurrency besides Bitcoin and get the months and dates right? That's
I have
all
other complaints, like daylight savings time is insane.
We can move here. There's no daylight savings here.
I know. Well, unless you go to the northeast corner of the quarter of the state, and then they do have it.
So if you live in the Grand Canyon,
right. So the Navajo Nation has it. And but then there's parts inside the Navajo Nation that don't. So there is actually a stretch. It's hilarious. There's this video talking about daylight savings time. Yeah. So there's actually this weird anomaly where there is a stretch. So there's 100-mile stretch. If you drive in a perfect line through Arizona, through like slice from the north, from like basically this way through Arizona, through the northeast corner of Arizona, through like the Navajo Nation and parts inside of it, you would literally have to change your clock your watch 7 times. Within a 100-mile stretch, you'll change your watch 7 times half the year.
Reminds me like when my dad had me, he was only 19 years old or 20 years old. And so at one point he could drink when he was 18, and he was in the perfect age where he could drink at 18, then he couldn't drink at 19. Then he could drink again. Then he couldn't drink. Then he had a baby and then couldn't even drink. So he was in the exact time window where he could drink, couldn't drink, could drink, couldn't drink.
Oh, but they were like couldn't figure out like.
And he was never grandfathered into any of that. So and then at one point he had a baby, and it was like 3 years later and he couldn't drink.
Yeah, no, it's really hilarious because anyway, we're getting into the weeds. Yeah, but this is like these insane like people just can't get on the same page, and one day, hopefully, America will get on the metric standard too.
Yeah, but anyways, it says we've been told things have never been better with the economy, but is that really the case? And then I said, hey, I go over a video of my reasoning why, and so what I ended up doing and what I was telling people, it was originally a client video, and then I repurposed it as a podcast once all the what hit the fan.
Yeah, I've done that as well.
Yeah, once all the what hit the fan, and what I said was going forward, it was a strategy I'd never really used before, where I was investing a tiny bit of their portfolio into put options, and then basically the rest of it was more broad-based indexes like the S&P, because I didn't. And the case that I made was like, listen, because of all the central bank intervention, I can make the case for 50% up and 50% down, which that makes me a true economist. Great stockbroker. It could go, it could go up 50%, or it could go down 50. So, but the whole purpose was, hey, if it goes down 50, we're just going to lose a very, very tiny amount. We can go back in, buy everything on the cheap. And if it goes up 50, then we're up 50 minus the amount of the put option, and it'll be better than if you were in bonds. So I've got no bonds, no. And so it was a kind of a controversial call to make at the time, especially given the fact that I was pro-Trump, and then now here I am talking crap about the economy. You don't want to say that out loud. Well, I said that I mean, look what's going on right now in the economy. This is great. You got the letter with Nancy Pelosi where he shut her down from going on the trip, and the government's shut down.
Yeah,
so
my single sex life certainly took a hit after that one.
Basically, I wanted to switch gears a little bit and talk about my progression into cryptocurrency space, and then Tone can tell me where I got it wrong and get us on the straight and narrow, because I have had Roger Ver on last year at Anarchapulco, where we heard the other side of things, and most of the people we've had on have been the other side of the coin, no pun intended. But now we've got Tone Vays, who is the Mr. Bitcoin Maximalist himself. But I just wanted to give sort of a little gestalt of where I came into things. Found out about Bitcoin when it was about $1 from the Daily Paul blogs from way back when. And the very first time I ever recommended it, it was going to be to somebody that was one of the richest people I knew at the time. So I knew they had money to basically, if things didn't pan out, it wouldn't be like their life savings if they threw a little bit into it. I gave every caveat of, And the dollar amount that I used was, hey, this could go up to like, I don't know, $10,000 someday. But when it's sitting at $30, that's a pretty big thing to say. I'm like, but good chance it goes to zero, and I don't know if it's going to break out of this anarcho-capitalist.
Did they invest?
No.
Oh shit.
And it was a person that I needed to be very credible with, because it was a person that was worth a lot of money, private equity guy. So needed to make sure that I knew what I was talking about at the time. But then then I see the price go up to 100, then it goes down, and I see the price go up to 1,000, it goes back down to 120, and then I see the price go up to 4,000, and it goes back down to 1,800, and that's when I finally got in. So so from a trading standpoint, it was good that I got in on the that
you
first
got in
big
on a pullback, yeah.
Yeah, I got in on a big pullback. But what really ended up, all my notes are gone somehow. But what really ended up getting me more into the cryptocurrency space, because I understood the money aspect of it, I understood the the currency aspect of it, but I didn't understand that there was other use cases for it. And maybe this is where you disagree, but it was once I found out, oh wait, there's something called Ethereum, and you can do smart contracts, and oh wait, someday the stock market could trade through the blockchain, or oh wait, this is more than just like magic money being floated back and forth. Like there's other real things you could do with it. So it's my fault that I didn't look into it big enough, and I didn't really have enough people in my life saying, hey, you need to go look into this. And it was at the time I thought, in 2012, I thought about investing, but I had moved from New York to Arizona. I had to basically start my business over again. I didn't know anybody out here. Put that money into the house. My down payment went up about 1,000% because I bought in at the absolute exact low within a month of the low. I thought that was a much safer bet in terms of, hey, do I put it into this cryptocurrency that could be worthless, or do I put it in a place that I could live when the market was depressed? I thought putting it into a place where I could live would be the safer bet. And actually, now with the pullback, it probably would have been about the same, give or take either way. But then as I'm starting to come into to really, really start looking into this really, really deeply, was probably the end of 2016, beginning of 2017. I remember hearing an interview where you were on Ernie's show. I think I was the guest after you, so I just happened to tune in a little bit early. And you were really the first person who I heard break it down extensively. And I remember texting Ernie, hey, I think this guy does a really good job with analogies. And then I think maybe a day or two later, or maybe a week later, he had Roger Ver on. And so you probably remember when you guys were on like staggered, or it was very, very close proximity of time frame. And so this was somebody who, I didn't know who you were, I didn't know who Roger Ver was, I didn't really know I knew the...
Roger's a very good speaker.
I knew all the philosophical understandings of Bitcoin, but I didn't actually, know all the use cases. I had a lot of other stuff going on in my life, so I wasn't, hardcore into this. So as I'm starting to get hardcore into this and realize these other use cases, I hear Roger talk, and from my perspective, again, this is from my perspective of somebody coming in and hearing you and hearing him,
Mm-hmm.
I'm thinking,
I'm really curious now.
I'm thinking, okay, well, Roger has got, obviously a lot of skin in the game, and probably, not a secret that he probably has more skin in the game than you from a net worth, from a absolute...
Oh, that is not a secret. He's got to be like 100x, 100,000x.
Yeah, I don't think that's a secret. So when he's making, $10,000 bets, and stuff to you, it's like, it means something, it is piddly to him, whereas for you, probably means something. So from my standpoint, I'm like, hey, this is a guy that has a lot of money to lose, being Roger Ver, and for him to really kind of go out in this philosophical... And also, I guess, as I'm coming into this, I see, that there's one group that's censoring people and another group that's not censoring people. And from my standpoint, coming in, being the libertarian, being someone that's been censored and shadow banned on Facebook myself, where, I used to get 1,200 people a day subscribing, and then it goes to zero the day after fake news.
What did you do, Tim?
Fake news went viral from my page, and then
I don't know that, but after listening to Roger Ver, what did you do, Tim?
So then after this, the thing is, I got into Ethereum and was still in double digits, and now it's getting back down there. So, but then I didn't really invest a lot into the coins myself, because my idea was, well, you look at the people who got really rich off Bitcoin, and it wasn't necessarily it was the people that got in either super early and had the balls to stick with it and hodl. Or it was the people like Roger who, A, got in early, and B, created a business around this. So I decided, well, I'm going to create a business around this.
That's not a bad idea.
And so I put my eggs into the basket of, hey, this is way too risky for me to... We're at Ernie's, we've got chickens and horses and waterfall.
I just want to make sure you didn't put your eggs into the Bitcoin cash basket that Roger Ver has been trying to convince people for a year and a half now.
I do have eggs in that basket.
Oh God, I feel bad for you.
Well, no, well, it's not. It's almost a nothing burger when it comes to net worth. Because what I was trying to invest in was, on the one hand, I have what I saw was, and it was actually in this pool right here. The actual, another scene of the crime, this pool, in the pool.
I always end up in Arizona when it's too cold to go into a pool. I don't know how I managed to do that. I have never been in this pool. It's my third time in this house. And I'm always in Arizona. Like the desert of America.
Well, you can come up to.
It's always too cold to go into a pool.
Come up to my neighborhood. We basically have like a resort pool that's heated. That's like 85 degrees in the water, maybe
Next
even
time.
90. Yeah, no, it's on the way to Vegas, but you're probably flying.
I almost ended up driving because just like a lot of people that are going to my conference, I waited till the last minute to buy my flight, and thank God for Southwest Airlines. Otherwise, I was going to be otherwise, I had to choose between a $500 ticket of a 1-hour flight or renting a car for $100 and driving.
Yeah, and I went to World CryptoCon a few months ago, and I flew there, and it took me the exact same amount of time if I would, because I live so far northwest. That it took me the same amount of time driving as it would.
I still don't understand how you live northwest, because north of Phoenix makes it longer to get to. Oh wait,
no, we're south.
Oh shit, that's right, we are south.
You've been drinking a little bit too much. Yeah, so
I'm really good with geography. You're right, it is northwest.
Don't you have a geography major or geology?
I'm a geology major, but I did have to take 2 geography classes. Like my geography is pretty damn good. I don't know why I thought that. You're right, it is northwest.
Yeah, so I live less. I live less.
Northwest.
I can get there.
That makes total sense.
I can get there in under 4 hours, and by the time I opt out of the TSA and have to get there early.
Oh yeah, it's almost the same thing. Yeah.
Yeah, it's basically the same.
It's almost the same. Yeah, if you live northwest Phoenix, then yeah, it's almost the same thing. It's fine.
There is no one that lives more northwest Phoenix than me. like as soon as you get like a mile away from my house, it is desert nothingness. But it's really nice where I'm at. And I forgot. Oh, so anyways, so we're in this pool right here. You've got one of the former libertarian nominees is in there, and a whole bunch of people are in there. And Ernie's like, "Hey Tim, we got a bunch of rich crypto guys here, and this is back when Bitcoin's probably $3,000, which now I mean." And so I'm thinking, okay, we got a bunch of rich crypto guys here. A lot of them have bought in super low cost basis. So how do you take their money? And if you bought it on Coinbase, you bought it on Kraken, you're on the grid, you didn't go to somebody from local Bitcoin.
How do you lower their tax implications?
Yeah, or potentially even eliminate it. So the really quick version of is you put the money into a charitable trust, you get a gigantic tax break, then the tax break offsets the income that comes out. You get to diversify inside of there. It doesn't actually trigger any capital gains. Then there's all sorts of other strategies of, hey, you use some of that income to then buy life insurance, put it in another special type of trust. That then goes outside of the estate tax realm, and then everybody except for the IRS is better off. I don't know, maybe you like the IRS, so I don't know, maybe I'm stepping on your toes there too.
I'm going to stay away from this topic.
Okay, so then, they're shut down right now, so you don't have to worry about it.
I doubt that.
So then,
I think the one government agency that will never be actually shut down is
the SEC is still active. So then I started trying to develop all these concepts, and then as I'm developing these concepts, I then find out that there was a company, excuse me, doing IRAs and charging 15% up front.
It's called Bitcoin IRA, yeah.
Yeah, I wasn't going to plug them, but yeah. So Bitcoin,
unfortunately, yeah.
Yeah, so BitcoinIRA.com is like the big 800-pound gorilla in the room. I saw they were charging people 15% up front. I'm like, this is highway robbery.
That's crazy.
I'm like, I guarantee I can do this cheaper. I've already got the licenses, all the other bullshit. I know how to do this. I then teamed up with two guys that specialize in this. That's all they've been doing for like the past 10 years. And then as I'm giving a speech at Acapulco, I guess the really, really quick version of this is LPL, the broker-dealer that I was with, in January, because I started setting up all this stuff before the gigantic run-up. And so this is like August of right around the fork time. So then Bitcoin out of nowhere, and there's no like YouTube video to go see like how to do what I'm doing. Like, oh, where's the YouTube video to do this advanced charitable trust planning of putting Bitcoin into, unless it's my video, or the Bitcoin IRA deal. I mean, there's running it through an RIA, a registered investment advisory. I mean, there's no manual of, hey, how to go do this. There's no book of how to go do this. And so as I'm setting up all this stuff, the price is going crazy, it's going through the roof, and my energy was in creating the business, not investing. In hindsight, I should have invested a whole bunch of money into all these different coins or Bitcoin, and then end up selling it and then using that to then fund everything else. So then January, LPL bans every advisor in America from talking about, recommending, thinking about, acknowledging Bitcoin. I'm like, oh, well, that's going to throw a big monkey wrench into my plans speaking at Anarchapulco next month. So then what I was going to do is drop my Series 7 license and then just continue having LPL be my custodian. And so if they're my custodian, there's a lot less they can tell me what to do. So then the RA that I was with knew what I was doing the entire time. And then a week before the presentation said, hey, Tim, we've got our panties a bunch too. You can't get the presentation. So I had to end up just like, fuck it. Resigned from a 6-figure residual income job to go do this. Then the state of Arizona then held on to my paperwork for about 6 months, so I couldn't even get going. And now we're absolutely rocking and rolling, and we just finally started getting going. And so the first crypto IRA, we didn't actually get in until about $3,500 in Bitcoin, like late October. So from that standpoint, it ended up being a blessing in disguise.
You avoided the whole bear market.
However, my initial strategy was to be able to have people sell when it was at a high amount, because let's say, hey, if you got enough money to live off, let's say $250,000 a year income, because you've got, $15 million in Bitcoin, hey, why don't we figure out a way to do that, through more traditional means, then have the rest you can go gamble with and Bitcoin, because
you and I are definitely going to be talking at the next bull run.
So the whole point was to, get people to, not because I didn't believe in cryptocurrencies, but the whole reason people got in early is so that way they can make money. Not everybody, some people, philosophically, but hey, you're sitting on, all of a sudden you're sitting on $100 million. Well, why don't you?
Not wrong with both, doing both.
Yeah, so why don't you take a little bit off the table? But unfortunately, I know pretty much all the horses are out of the barn for that strategy, unless you've got a gigantic tax bill, or you've got some liquidity need, or you've got some other, I don't know, maybe you're the trader, so would you probably agree with that statement that the horses left the barn in terms of we're probably at a relative low, obviously compared to 20,000? Like you don't see it going down to 300 or something?
No, not okay. 300. I do see it going down to as low as 1,000. But realistically speaking, probably 2,200. Well, 2,200 is a realistic bottom. Anything below 2,000, I will actually sell whatever is not nailed down in my life.
You even if you had hair, you could donate that too.
So. Yeah, I donate that. Like I'll be, I'll think of something, right? Like I'll think of something. Like I'll max out my credit cards. It's a perfect time. Like hey, if it doesn't work, then I'm broke. Then they can't go after that debt anyway, right?
And then you just go, just go bankrupt, and then go to.
I'll think of something. Like if the price of Bitcoin goes below 2,000. I consider myself already all in. I will be leveraged all in if it goes below 2K.
Yeah, I know some people that did, not with Bitcoin, but with some stocks, who put everything on credit cards and now are, have private jets because they made incredibly risky all-in type moves.
It can be but the difference between me and other people is that I've been in this space for 4 to 5 years, and I'd like to at least think in my mind that I am very aware of this asset. So for me, it's not speculation because I understand what's behind it. But I am also the guy that told everyone never to buy Ethereum, even when it was 20 cents. I was the guy that said, do not buy into the Ethereum ICO. It is scammy as hell. It is breaking all kinds of security laws.
The Howey test.
The Howey test is completely broken. And I knew that at the time. And the service that they're offering is totally useless to the world. That was my view on it even back then. The price of Ethereum went to $1,600.
Do you think smart contracts are useless, or that Bitcoin will eventually do that? Or
Bitcoin may eventually do that, or it could do that. It's not that smart contracts are useless. Smart contracts are very useful, but it's not smart contracts that's in question. It's whether smart contracts need to be on a decentralized platform that's in question. And my answer is it doesn't. There is a difference between having a smart contract and having the inefficiency of decentralization in your smart contract. And I think eventually the world will move towards efficiency and centralized smart contracts. because the decentralization is just not needed. It's almost like, see, you're probably a lot younger than me.
Just turned 33 last week.
Not a lot then. So you remember there was a point in your life where you used BitTorrent and you downloaded music and movies. We all have.
Yeah, my initial what was it, the AOL screen name? I was Tipster 2000 as a play off Napster.
Right. And we all were, right? Like I said, why in the world would I ever pay for movies and shows and music ever again? But the reality of the centralized world has now brought us movies and music on demand, anytime we like, at better quality, with ease, at a reasonable enough price, to the point where we no longer pirate or use BitTorrent or download it. Is that true for you as well?
Yeah, I don't use any of that stuff.
Exactly. So it's fun while it lasts.
Got too many podcasts to keep up with.
Right.
Too, so.
It's fun while it lasts. When there was a point in technological history where downloading your own song and storing it yourself was simpler, easier, and cheaper than the alternative. But at this point in technological history, it is, I wouldn't say it's still cheaper, but it's almost cheaper, right? Because it's so cheap to just pay $10 a month for most people that it's not worth it getting that virus anymore, right? Like, the quality is better. Just pay for Netflix, pay for Hulu, pay for Spotify, pay for Pandora.
So it's like the time is money. It's not worth my
Correct.
time dicking around.
Exactly. And we got to a point where the inefficiency of decentralization was no longer worth it. And that's how I see smart contracts.
Is that just because Tron owns BitTorrent now, or
Well, that's irrelevant.
No.
I actually forgot until you said that. But that doesn't matter. I'm just talking about the concept, the idea. And by the way, the only reason why Tron even owns BitTorrent is because barely anyone uses it anymore for that reason, right? Like, why on earth would they sell it if it was still the most popular thing out there, right?
Now, do you
like,
think
that was their exit plan. Like, hey, we're going to die anyway. Might as well take the money from some scam coin.
Well, what about, I do see a need for having files that you can control that can't be censored or I guess in your terms, unconfiscatable, where, let's say I'm talking about the Federal Reserve, or I'm talking about stuff that people don't want to hear.
But that is a small niche of the system, right? And you will have that. You will always need decentralized smart contracts, but they will be some of the most censored smart contracts by the government. So you start from the top and work your way down. The most censored contract will need decentralization, okay?
So like a gun file.
Like a gun file.
I can Cody Wilson here too.
I can go higher level than that. I don't know if you want me to say it on live air, right?
Yeah.
But we already had this problem with Augur. Like, an assassination contract is probably the most illicit contract you can have, and it's universally frowned upon, and legitimately so. But something like that, if you want that to exist, it will have to be decentralized. So basically, the inefficiency of decentralization has to compensate for the illegality of the act. And as you get...
My last name almost translates into Hitman in Italian.
Wow.
It's the bottom rank of La Cosa Nostra is my last name, which they were the Hitman.
And that's not what Ethereum was selling you. Ethereum was selling you that the soda machine is inefficient because there is a middleman between you and buying your soda. So you walking up to the soda machine, you have to pay in a made-up currency of Ethereum. The transaction of you buying your soda has to be decentralized and stored on hundreds of thousands of computers for verification, and then recalculated mathematically, drawing resources for the rest of history.
So Ethereum wasn't like mined into existence. There was an ICO for a great deal of it.
Yes. The like
initial
80% of all Ethereum in existence was still created out of thin air in the beginning. The rest has been mined. But the point is that Ethereum is telling you that the world will function better when stupid contracts like you buying a soda from a soda machine need to be government censorship resistant. I mean, I'm okay living in a world where the government is censoring people from drinking more soda. That's a different discussion, right?
Unless you're Warren Buffett. I mean, he loves his Coke. So.
I mean, oh my God, I can't remember the last time I drank a soda. But the reality of the situation is there are very, very few contracts that require the inefficiency of decentralization. Now, Bitcoin is different because every single payment in the world has always been censored by the current money system. But that's not what Ethereum's offering. Now, Ethereum made up their own currency to do it. So under the best circumstances, if Ethereum's smart contracts need decentralization, it will be done on Bitcoin without the made-up currency of Ethereum. It'll be done in a currency that people have, which is Bitcoin. That is also decentralized.
But do you think that there's value in having competition of, hey, these other people are doing it and it works, or we've seen the bugs that they've worked out and now Bitcoin can, for better use of the word, hijack that or use that technology to then implement it on its own? I mean, is there any use cases for?
Sure, there's plenty of use cases, but the question that I always deal with people that are following my work and other people work in crypto, just because there is a use case for somebody else to work out the bugs, it doesn't mean that's an investable opportunity, right? So my point is, yes, it's fine. If Litecoin wants to be the piñata of bugs, that's great, but that's not something you should be investing your money in, right? I mean, if people want to do something stupid that if they succeed will be integrated into something better, that's not a way for you to make your money. You can trade this stuff, but don't ever leave your value in it long term because it's just gonna lose you all of your money. So there is a difference between, I mean, if someone wants to really do something stupid in case they succeed, that's great, but that's not what a normal person should invest in. Let a person with a lot of money invest in that, because there's a 98% probability they will lose.
So you're saying that it should be just accredited investors and it should have gone through the Howey test of...
Absolutely. And to be honest with you, most VCs, they lose people money. They lose people money. It's like, I always make a joke on that. It's like, yeah, I mean, like, yeah, there's lots of people out there talking about how they made all this money on Airbnb and Uber and some of these other things, but they were insiders and they'll never tell you about all the stupid projects they lost money on. And if you add up all of their investments over their lifetime through these kinds of speculative investments, you'll see that they probably would have done better by putting it in the Dow Jones. But you don't get to sit around your poker table with other rich friends making fun of them because you got lucky with Uber.
Yeah, one of the big things I've always stressed is something called sequence of return risk, which we're going to talk about in Acapulco this year, where it doesn't really matter what your average return is, it only matters what the order of that return is. So if you, let's say, are close to retirement, maybe you shouldn't be all in on the S&P 500, because if it's great that it averages 10% a year, but if it goes down 50% in year one, you then have to go up, like 132% over the course of the next 3 years if you're pulling out 4% to live off of. And by then you've usually shit your pants because you're down 50% and you moved it all into cash, you moved it all into bonds. Same thing with crypto. So a lot of these people in the Ethereum smart contracts, who, as all the ERC20 tokens that were printed off, which I agree that probably 99% of them were bullshit, which you're probably saying it's more like 99.99. So maybe that's a disagreement we might have a little bit there. And I always have said that people, if from an investment standpoint, there's a philosophical standpoint of argument that I agree with, and an investment standpoint, and I still think it makes sense for people to have, and obviously you're going to disagree with this, I think people should at least have 50-60% in Bitcoin and then start speculating, but they should also know how much they can even afford to speculate with. So you shouldn't just say, hey, let's just go take all of my money and throw it into these different coins. But I do see a use case that there will be other coins in the future that could be valuable, and I think that's where we probably
That's
disagree.
where we disagree a little bit. I don't think that. I don't think there's going to be other coins that are valuable in the future, but even if I'm wrong, which I don't think that I am, even if I'm wrong, I am smart enough to know I don't know which ones they will be. And that is why I will never put my money in them.
What if somebody made like a, not to say like an ETF, but let's say there was I think there is a coin that you can buy right now. It's the ERC20 token that then tracks like another 100 coins or something.
I don't think they will outperform the Bitcoin, right? It's kind of like, it's a terrible analogy, but it's the only one that's in my head right now. It's kind of like diversifying Google stock for search engines with other penny stocks competing with Google. Like, they're not gonna, but over there, the only way you can still profit is if by some chance Google will buy out your company. But that's not gonna happen in Bitcoin. Like, Bitcoin is not gonna buy out your altcoin. So without the buyout option.
Is there anything that would get you to turn your back on Bitcoin? Is there anything that could be done that would shake your confidence? Or
yeah, but I wouldn't. But then the money would go into the Dow Jones. Like, it wouldn't go into another crypto, right? Because, like, what people...
Actually, have you ever seen the Chappelle episode where it was with R. Kelly, and like, what would it take in order for you to be convinced that it was R. Kelly that actually raped the girl? And it's like, well, I'd have to have, him doing it with 2 forms of identification, and then I'd have to have his mom and his grandma over there, and then if his mom and his grandma and he was doing it with the identification and he was on camera, then I might just, at that point, I might just think that he was guilty. And so in what case do you have to think that would be?
Okay, so here's the thing, right? Like, to me, Bitcoin is true innovation. Like, and this is the argument that people always have for Bitcoin. Bitcoin is the Ford Model T, which is a terrible argument. Because Ford, if my memory serves me right, Ford, the company, still exists today. It's a company that's been around for 100 years. The innovation wasn't the Model T. The innovation was the car. To me, Bitcoin
actually, the innovation was
car.
The assembly line. Mercedes-Benz created the car.
The innovation was the car. It doesn't matter what company is creating the car. The innovation was the car. Bitcoin is that innovation.
It's the Mercedes-Benz.
Sure.
Okay.
And that's what it is to me. And these types of innovation come around once in a generation. Like the internet, the same internet that we've used for the last 30 years, we're still using. There was never a better internet. It's still the internet.
Now, I think this is where we probably disagree again, is that I know that when you were on Ernie's show a few days ago, you said, hey, when I talk to Tim, one of the things I want to ask him is different coins that he would shill, or what other altcoins would he want to be invested in. So instead of walking into that trap, I guess I might just get the 800-pound gorilla off the back and just bring it up to begin with, because it does have to do with the internet itself. So if you look at the lower level, and I'm not a super techie geek guy of being able to fully understand this, and if I was, no one would be able to understand me anyways. So it's sort of my understanding is that you have the lower level of the internet is somewhat broke, and that you can't actually scale it, and eventually they're going to run out of different addresses from the I forgot the TCP/IP, whatever they call it. Yeah, that protocol.
But that's the thing, right? But they know that they can't migrate everyone in the world to a new internet. So the smart people are going to have to find a way to fix it.
Well, one of those smart people, and I know that you know about these guys, and the reason I met with them is very similar to how I found out about you, is I was a guest on maybe before or after this person, and that's how I discovered it. And I know that you know probably who I'm talking about is Nexus Earth with Colin Cantrell.
Unfortunately.
And I see the eyes rolling back already. But when I take a look at what they're doing from an innovation standpoint, you have this lower level database that what they're trying to do is essentially create a encrypted version of the lower level database that is much more efficient than what is currently going on. Again, I'm just a layman trying to explain what is going on, because it's super complicated. And essentially most people are just working at like the top layer of the internet. Like, they're making a WordPress site, they're on Facebook, they're doing something at the seam. They don't see what's going on at the foundation. And essentially the foundation level of the internet is actually broken. And so what they're going to do in a nutshell, and again, I probably own like $500 worth now, so it's not like I'm like sitting over here on $100,000 of Nexus and
Right.
I'm hoping it goes to the moon. And so essentially what they're also doing is they're having a platform where they're going to have cube satellites. They're going to have 1024-bit encryption is going to be the underlying algorithm, where you're going to have this whole mesh network, and then you're going to have but again, the odds of it succeeding are very low because they're trying to solve what could be a quadrillion-dollar problem in the future. I mean, I don't think we disagree that that's a multi-trillion in the future with inflation, quadrillion-dollar type problem that's going on. And then when you've got a guy, I've never seen him show the price. I've never seen they didn't do an ICO. I've been to their offices. They're not too far away from here. It seems like they are pretty legit, that they're not trying to scam people. They're not promising them the moon. And something like that, I mean, would you call that a scam, or would you just say it's a low probability of working? Or
We're talking about Nexus.
Nexus Earth, yeah.
Well, here's the thing, right? I mean, can we separate the two? Because my view on it is, whatever, they're building a better internet. Let's talk about the higher level. Let's not get into the weeds, right? They're building a better internet, right? The better internet doesn't need Nexus coin. So the point is, like, the internet has survived for 30 years, 40 years, right? It never had a coin.
But you've got to pay for, Cox satellite of internet, $100 a month.
Oh, you got to pay for that anyway, right?
Well, what if that coin then is what then paid for the satellite link usage though?
Still got to pay for it, right? But so
what if you owned it ahead of time and bought it at 30 cents, and all of a sudden now it's worth $200, and now you've got internet for the rest of your life? Again, low probability. Not saying it's going to happen. They're Made Safe is trying to do it.
The question is, like, the current internet has to fail, right? So there's two things that can happen here. The best option is if they came up with better technology to scale the internet. That technology needs to be integrated into the current internet.
And I believe that is what they are doing, and they have
somehow, because you will never get everyone to migrate to another internet. And this has already been proven. Remember what happened when Napster went down? You might have been a little too young. I was in college at the time. Jesus Christ. Outdoors in Arizona.
I was on Napster. So it was a LiveWire.
Right, and it was LimeWire and Kazaa and BearShare, and I can name them all day, okay?
I forgot about those, yeah.
It became free-for-all until BitTorrent came in and took all the users because it became a disaster. And that's what's going to happen. If the current internet fails, everyone is just going to splinter into randomness. So the best solution is to take the technology and upgrade the thing that everyone is on. And it may not be elegant, and it may not be the best thing, may not be the most efficient, but it's the one that is the most useful.
But when you've got the creator of the guy that, not Al Gore, or not Sir Tim Berners-Lee is somewhat credited as having inventing the internet, and he's coming out and saying that the internet is broken and this is not what he developed, and it was supposed to be this whole more of a decentralized, of everyone's got their own little internet mesh network type deal.
And what people don't realize, like, these systems need to be kept alive and on life support for as long as possible. Probably if you grew up with libertarian parents, you probably heard about how the dollar is broken and on the verge of collapse since you were 1 year old. And here we are, getting close to 40.
My daughters will be hearing that.
Correct. And there is a chance that your daughter will be going to college under the same system because you keep them on life support. Because when
here
they
you're talking about
fail,
scams, college now, that's the biggest scam. So.
Yeah. It depends how you do it. I mean, they paid me to go to get my master's in financial engineering, so I did okay. No, I mean, like, as far as college is concerned, you go to the best school that pays you. Like, man, I went to Florida State University getting my master's in financial engineering. At the time, a little off tangent. At the time, there were about 20 universities in America that offered a financial engineering degree. I believe Florida State ranked number 19 out of 20. Like, I literally went to the second worst program for my degree. But I eventually got my Wall Street job. But the difference is, I left my grad school with a new car because I was paid to go there, instead of $200,000 in debt.
How'd you get paid to go there?
I got a scholarship. Yeah, I was a teaching assistant, and as a teaching assistant, you get a free tuition, and you get paid to teach undergrad classes.
So must be nuts for those people. Like, hey man, there's Tone Vays. I remember him as my TA, and now.
Yeah, exactly. I had longer hair back then. It was my style was the opposite. But the idea is, like, basically you keep these systems alive for as long as you can. And at this point, like, the loss of confidence in the store of value of a blockchain as a currency can potentially die completely. That everyone is incentivized. Everyone other than the guy creating an altcoin. Everyone else is incentivized to keep Bitcoin alive for the next 100 years. And I expect it to be alive for the next 100 years. Can Bitcoin survive 100 years? I have no idea. But I know that it's not going anywhere. Because if an altcoin can prove that Bitcoin dies, then no one will ever store any value in any blockchain. I won't.
Can there be a world where there is Bitcoin is maybe 25% of the market cap, and you've got 100 other smaller splits?
I don't think so. I just don't think so. They're just, and at the moment, Bitcoin is way more stable. It's way more secure. It has the smartest people working on it. And like, look, there is occasionally this one guy. I mean, people confused. Here's one of the biggest fallacies that, and it's so prevalent in the crypto world. And the fallacy goes like this. Well,
Blockstream,
yeah, I was on Blockstream. Bill Gates and Steve Jobs and Mark Zuckerberg. Well, Zuckerberg dropped. They all dropped out of college and became billionaires, building some of the biggest companies that ever existed. So if I drop out of college, I can also build a company that's going to be globally known.
Causation,
right?
correlation.
Right, exactly. And that's one of the big fallacies. It's like, yes, occasionally the crazy guy will build something globally innovative, but 99.99% of the time, the crazy guy is a crazy guy.
Yeah, maybe Kanye West will agree with that. So, I mean, he had that quote recently where he was talking about, everyone's calling me crazy, but, they called Steve Jobs crazy, and
exactly.
He's walking around with an iPhone in their pocket now.
Now, at least Kanye has something to cling to because he, does have some lyrical and musical, right? But at least but at least he's done something, right? We're talking about people that have done nothing. Like another thing that I tried to explain, I came here from Wall Street, and before I quit my Wall Street job, I was watching the same libertarian channels that everybody else does, and even you start to think, man, am I the problem? Like, are Wall Streeters just scammers? Are we scamming everybody? And then I come to the crypto space, and I've seen both sides. And it's like, man, you know what I've never seen in front of me with my own eyes? A Wall Street guy doing coke. Guess how many weeks it took for me to see that in the crypto space when I finally came into the space, right? Like all of these, it's the opposite. It's really the opposite. Like, here's another thing. Like, when
it's probably because you're going around telling everybody, hey, that coke, that's a scam. That's a scam
right.
coke.
Like, people
that's
see...
been cut.
People see these anomalies of Jordan Belfort and the Wolf of Wall Street, and they think that everyone on Wall Street is like that. When in reality, every single, not every single one, but 90% of the guys that have started an ICO are like Jordan Belfort. Meanwhile, 99% of Wall Street is the opposite of Jordan Belfort, right? They're guys that have master degrees. They have families. The last thing they want to do is put their career and life at jeopardy. And it's like, with all the people on Wall Street, you walk into a room, you meet a new person. You go out, you meet a new person at your company. It's like, here's what you don't have to think about. That guy is smart. He would not have gotten that job. And if he's brand new, if he just got hired, yeah, let's find out. But if he's been there for like 3 or 4 years at the company, if you've been at JP Morgan or Goldman Sachs, I mean, Goldman Sachs wouldn't even hire you unless you've excelled at like JP Morgan or Bear Stearns when it existed. Like Goldman Sachs never hires college graduates. I mean, you better be at the top of your class in like Berkeley or something. Even like,
I've got a funny story about being in Goldman Sachs right at the top of the market in November like 2007. We had this girl. We took a field trip. You know, I was in the financial team and running our school's student investment fund, so I got to go down there, and we were in Goldman Sachs and Florida Stock Exchange. Like the first time it was at 14,000, and this girl, like stereotypical dumb blonde, here we are sitting in Goldman Sachs. And this is
in your group from college.
Yeah, and I never wanted to like basically bury my head more than in this moment.
It's embarrassing.
So this girl, so they're talking about like $5 billion bond deals. This guy is like, oh, hey, sorry I'm late. I was doing a $10 billion bond deal in California, and sorry I'm 5 minutes late. And then they're talking about like, hey, you know, sometimes we got to have cooperation of, hey, you know, that this guy has got some knowledge that I need, so I'll bring another guy on from a different team. And then so this girl like raises her hand. She's like, well, I sell, I don't know what it is, like MAC makeup. And when I sell MAC makeup, and then if I knew that there was going to be somebody else to help me out, then I had to give my commission to them, and I would never do it. And I'm just like,
right.
I'm like, you realize none of us are ever going to get invited back here again because you're a dumbass.
Right. And this is the thing, right? So when I was there, if I happened to come into a meeting, let's say it's like, hey, Tone, come into this meeting. We got our data vendors are coming in. They're sending like 3 guys. And these 3 people come in. It didn't matter how old they were. 3 people come in and they're smart as hell. Like, you know, there's like, they're going to be smart. And because you have to, I'm not saying a college degree is worth all that much, but at least you show confidence that you didn't like die of alcohol poisoning while you were in college for 4 years, right? Like, at least you've made it past that stage. So the
goal is to get as close as possible to that without...
Right. Like there was a couple of things. Like, look, I'm not saying a college degree is all that useful, but being able to get that degree shows something. It shows something, right? Again, unless you're one of those rich people that your parents paid for everything, but that's a rare anomaly once again. They're all anomalies. So
I already told you my dad, the whole 19 and 20-year-old parents, so obviously it wasn't my case. So,
and so those are anomalies. So here's something I never had to consider. If I meet a brand new person related to my field of study in my work environment, I didn't have to question their IQ level and their smarts. But in the crypto space, I learned really quickly that when someone is describing their new crypto project, before I listen to what their project is, I need to figure out, did this person graduate high school? And would they have if they stayed? Like that's the thing. Like, when I talk to these people in the crypto space, I have no idea if they're crazy or if they're smart. And after dealing with this for years, I've realized that 90% of them are just crazy. Something that I did not have to deal with in the world of Wall Street.
There are a ton of scammers. I mean, stuff like BitConnect.
And by the way, the best scammers are the smartest guys in the space. They have to be in order to keep doing it.
I mean, you got guys like, you know, like the BitConnect and I mean, there were so many scams I saw from a mile away. And I think one of the disagreements I have is I feel like you're calling everything a scam, which, I mean, it's sort of like if the government says something, I automatically default to bullshit until proven not bullshit, which is almost never. And so sort of like, you know, and I've seen people out there and they're just hawking, you know, hey, we're going to do this and make $1 gazillion and all sorts of all the red flags that you see. You see it everywhere. You see it constantly in this space, unfortunately. And so the space does need some good people. But I also see, you know, I guess when I meet another financial advisor, I don't automatically assume that they're smart, because basically being a financial advisor is more about being a marketing and sales job. And unfortunately, it took me a while to learn this, as I thought like, hey, I'm just going to be the smartest guy out there and I'm just going to do really well and make all these big calls and everyone's just going to find out about me. And then come to find out, no, it's basically a marketing job where you've got to pretend like you know what you're doing. And it's funny, there was like a CFP, Certified Financial Planner commercial, where it shows a guy who used to be a DJ and he knows nothing about financial advising it all, and somebody gives them like a script of, hey, here's some hot button issues, and then they interview these people afterwards, like, what did you think about him? They're like, I thought he was smart and competent and professional. And the funny thing is, they give a date, and it's actually my birthday when they give it out, which my birthday is also the first day when the Bitcoin software client was released, so I think that was pretty cool. Unfortunately, it was also the day that the police hijacked my birthday this year and made it Law Enforcement Appreciation Day. So I was not being libertarian, and since we're at Ernie's right now, I wasn't happy about that.
It's like the old E-Trade commercial where the guy from the mailroom is educating the CEO on how to use E-Trade.
Yeah, and then he ends
one
up,
of those.
Well, then at the end of it, he ends up saying, well, hey, guess what? I'm actually a DJ. I actually have nothing to do with financial advising. I know none of this. I basically use words like diversification and all these hot, and I do see that a lot in the crypto space. And I loved your video that you did on what was it, Ripple? And actually, I made a Facebook Live on January 3rd of 2018. Within 12 hours of the high on Ripple, we got
Jesus.
With those cocks quiet down back there. We got the chickens and roosters in the background. But within 12 hours of the high in Ripple, because when you see all these uneducated people getting into the space and saying, oh, well, if Bitcoin's, $20,000, how come Ripple can't be $10? Or how come Ripple can't be $1,000? I'm like, you realize there's 100 billion Ripple, and if it was $10, it would be the most valuable company. Well, at the time, there was no company worth $1 trillion. That was at least public. And so I'm like, you think it's gonna be worth $1 trillion? And on video, it says, I hope you lose all of your effing money. And then the feed actually cut out right after that. But then that's what I said. And then I referenced your video and put it in the show notes because I thought you did a great job. But now I feel like you're just calling everything a scam, and before you do any analysis on it, scam.
In the coins, because everyone's inventing their own money to fund their company. That's not how economics works. Like, I'm sorry, you can't just create your own money out of thin air. The solution to the government printing of infinite money is not you printing your own money also.
I agree with that. What if I wanted to have like an STO where I have it backed by my future earning ability of my company?
But that's a security. You can have a security as long as you follow the laws of securities. And if you don't like the laws of securities, you got to try to change the laws of securities. I'm in the security business,
so obviously I couldn't go Wild West ICO because I'm
in
the...
Look, the thing with an STO, if you follow all the rules and regulations on creating a security to fund your company, that's great. The only other complaint I'm going to have, your security token is not a scam. It's a security. About it, or you know about it, you're not going to waste your time building a... Can you imagine if every day you heard about a new internet and you had to spend 2 hours a day recreating everything you've done on your internet, the one you're using currently, your name, your podcast, everything. Well, I better secure my domains on a new internet in case it becomes something. After you spend half your day every day for weeks on different internets, you're gonna say, screw this. And what's going to happen is, if one of those internets actually takes over and you did not secure your domains, why would you go there? Someone else has beaten you to your own domains. Like, this idea that everyone is going to move to another internet is crazy. And the right solution is to somehow fix our current one. Because now, that's just you. Imagine Amazon. Imagine Amazon.com having to move to another internet where Amazon.com is taken. Now what? And that's what they'll do. If the Nexus guys are going to build a new internet.
Could you also make the argument that maybe there shouldn't be any other websites besides Amazon, because Amazon could do it all? And so why do you even have other websites? Because, technically Amazon sort of does almost do it all.
But Amazon is a website on top of a protocol. Right? Those are very different things. So what I guarantee you happens is, so for profit, I guarantee you if the Nexus people...
Went out?
Ooh.
Okay, well, it's recording locally, so...
All
right, we're wrapping it up. I was just busting his balls. I think my own deal, because I think he changed his Wi-Fi password.
So, these are complicated things, and what's happening in this world is that the people that are creating a new thing, they're gonna be early to it, and they don't see that as a problem. Maybe there'll be one honest one that says you can migrate every single .com that you had onto the new one, and early people don't get to profit. But that's not how these things work. They're like, well, all of these big companies and all the governments are all scamming us, so therefore I'm gonna create a new internet and I'm gonna buy Amazon.com and I'm gonna sell it to them and make money, right? And that no one's gonna migrate there. So it's the same thing with this, right? It's not like, oh, they didn't want to create a bigger block. A bigger block would have forced everyone onto the network. Like, that wasn't an option. People think that a bigger block on Bitcoin was an option. It wasn't. The only way to have a bigger block is to create a whole other Bitcoin. And that means everyone that's on the current Bitcoin has to move over to there. And they wouldn't, because of all the work they've done, everything they've achieved.
Well, when it forked off, I mean, at that point, they didn't really have to move it over. It was just, you had
to choose a side. You had to sell one. I sold all my Bcash immediately, and I went into Bitcoin because I knew that was the one that was going to last. And I sold all my Bcash, all my Bitcoin Cash at 0.1 Bitcoin per Bitcoin Cash. I increased my
10%.
Bitcoin holdings by 10%, and today it's about 3%. So I saved 70% of my money by doing that. Right? So that was the wise financial decision. Now, if I would have waited a couple of months, I could have probably gotten 2x on that. But from the day that I sold onto today, I did well. And that's because it's not like these guys want SegWit and we want big blocks. Big blocks was it was something that was unattainable. The only way to do that is with a hard fork, creating your own different currency. This one could have done inside the currency that everyone already trusts. So it wasn't a 50-50 thing. And the market,
what happens when we get to the point of we need, let's say, 10% of the world's on Bitcoin. No way they could actually handle that type of volume. And then with the Lightning Network, I mean, it's my understanding that you have to create your own node and run your own node. So now you've got to have grandma convincing her.
Well, that's the misconception. That was also my misconception. So
I heard it from your video. So
correct.
That's how.
And so what happens is right now, creating your own Bitcoin node is pretty complicated. Grandma ain't doing that. But
I thought between you and Jimmy's song that I could at least get some reliable.
But because they used it out of context a little bit. The reality of the situation is what people are calling a Lightning node is already as difficult as downloading a Lightning wallet onto your phone, and that is a Lightning node. So we are getting to a point where having a Lightning node is literally having an app. It's not complicated at all. And that's one of the things, and that's why I didn't like calling it a node.
All right, so basically they put their finger down the button, they go download a wallet, and then boom, you're running
exactly,
your own node.
And you're running your own Lightning node, which is, like I said, like running a Lightning node right now is still a little bit complicated, but pretty soon it's going to be simple, and that's what I'm waiting for.
Okay, that's what he's waiting for. So I know we've been going for a really long time now. Appreciate everybody watching.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for watching.
Head to Vegas if you guys are out there, and talk to you guys later. Thank you. Thank you for listening to the show. One of the ways you can help support the show is by seeing if it makes sense to invest with myself. I'm a certified financial planner with Innovative Advisory Group, LLC. Innovative specializes in self-directed IRAs where you can invest into virtually anything, including virtual assets and cryptocurrencies inside your retirement accounts. And get this, you can actually hold on to the private key. And that's something that nobody else is doing, at least with the help of an advisor. We also run protective growth portfolios where you invest a small amount of your portfolio into put options, and that basically helps protect the rest of the portfolio. Not very many people are familiar with put options, but a lot of people are familiar with homeowners insurance, and it works in a very similar fashion. So essentially what you're doing is using a very, very small percentage of basically, the value of the home to protect the rest of the home. And if the house doesn't burn down or there isn't a major catastrophe, then you're basically out on the cost of the insurance. Flip side, on if your house ends up burning down, well, then you build your house back. And that's really the same thing that's going on here. So if the market ends up tanking, and we know the most that you can possibly lose on your investment, and honestly, if the market were to go down 60, 70%, and you're only down single digits potentially, then that's an amazing buying opportunity. Lord Nathan Rothschild said it best, that the best time to invest is when there's blood in the streets. But if your money goes down with everybody else's, then you're not able to take advantage of the next crisis. And also, if you're just camping out in cash or in bonds, making next to nothing, you could be going broke safely for a very long time. And then you've got to know when to time the market. And that's something that basically nobody can do. Now, on the flip side, if I'm wrong in all this and the market keeps going higher, or the Federal Reserve comes out, or the European Central Bank comes out and says, hey, we're going to print a whole bunch more money, and the market goes to infinity, well, then you'll go up to infinity minus the cost of that put option. So I think that this is a great strategy that you definitely want to learn more about. I mean, just given the craziness that's going on right now, I mean, if you're heavy into cash right now, heavy into bonds, or even heavy into stocks, especially if you're close to actually needing those funds for retirement, or just needing those funds in general, maybe for a big project, or maybe you work on a crypto and you raised a whole bunch of money, that this is something that we can help protect yourself and protect your loved ones. And there's nothing you have to lose by scheduling a free consultation with us. And actually, there's a chance you could lose a lot by not talking with us in general. If you go and click on our website in the upper right hand corner, there's a Work with Tim button up there. You can see all of our plans, ways we work with our clients. Pricing can all be found there. And given that I'm sort of out there on a lot of different political issues, I know that I'm not going to be for everybody. You know, that's sort of my way of qualifying you, not the other way around. But, you know, I'm fine. I'm not trying to have all 6 billion people out there like me. And I'm here to really, at the end of the day, to tell the truth and to make money, not necessarily make friends. So head over to thelibertyadvisor.com and let's see what we can do for you. Thank you.